unconstitutional. Lawmakers will be tasked with adding a majority black congressional district in West Atlanta, as well as make changes to the State House and State Senate maps. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
The Monterey Bay Aquarium is more than a place to learn about ocean animals. They're also working to inspire conservation of the ocean by stopping plastic pollution, supporting sustainable seafood, and minimizing our carbon footprint. Join them in their efforts to protect the ocean.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The Lakers get their first win of the season last night. They beat Phoenix by 5 at Crypto.com. Anthony Davis scored 13 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter. LeBron James played 35 minutes, including the entire fourth quarter. He had 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists. Phoenix had a 12-point lead entering the fourth quarter. The Clippers are back in action tonight at Utah, 6:30 tip-off on KTLA TV Channel 5. From the Now It Can Be Told department, 2 former NFL players tried out for the lead role in the 1971 groundbreaking film Shaft, running back Jim Brown and defensive back Fred Williamson. The role eventually went to an unknown model named Richard Roundtree, who turned Shaft into an iconic film character. Roundtree passed away on Tuesday. He was 81. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions because we've got your black. Listen up. If you're one of the more than 100,000 California tenants who were rejected or delayed when applying for COVID rental assistance, you've got a second chance. Under the terms of a new settlement, California's Housing and Community Development Department agreed to audit its past denials. The program ended in March 2022, but the advocacy groups Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, Policy Link, and Strategic Actions for a Just Economy sued the department. According to the coalition's analysis of state data, the department rejected nearly 30% of all applicants. Under the settlement, the department agreed to clear all renters in the pipeline within 6 months. The settlement applies to anyone who sought assistance from the state's Housing is Key program before April 1st, 2022, whose applications is pending or was denied after June 6, 2022. Tenants who have questions about the status of their application can call the hotline at 833-430-2122. That's 833-430-2122. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Smile up on my face, I'm like, oh, yes, I'm blessed, yes, I'm blessed, yes. Waking up, thanking God, Every day is feeling just like Sunday. Wifey fly by my side. Green light, everything is going my way. Riding clean, living dreams. Just left the barber and I'm feeling like Midas. Heard him say, give him praise. What's in the water got you acting like this? Ain't a day go by that I don't try to thank the Lord up above. And if you wonder why I'm loving life, come close and I'll tell you what's up. Ask me how I'm doing, I'm blessed, yes. Living every moment, no regrets. Smile up on my face, I'm like, oh, yes, I'm blessed, yes, I'm blessed, yes. Ask me how I'm doing, I'm blessed, yes. Living every moment, no regrets.
KBLA Talk 1580. I love that song. Such an important thing to remember. Yes, I'm blessed. And I'm blessed to be here with you every single day. If you missed a show, bless us with your presence in the podcast space. Find us. If you missed the entire conversation, for example, this morning with Dr. Joy DeGruy, you can find it on YouTube, where we stream every day. You can also find it wherever you get your podcast, and it is free. Our podcasts are free. You can find them on Spotify, on Apple Music. Just type in my name, type in the name of the guest, or type in KBLA 1580. Or best of all, you could get the app. That helps you and us, because you can listen to KBLA on your phone wherever you go. But you can also help the world know that there's a lot of folks listening and a lot of folks standing with unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. Deep dive today with an educator and a curator who studies art objects that reflect transnational and transcultural histories, especially the ones that speak to racial and ethnic inclusion, exile and migration, and gender discrimination across the Americas throughout the 20th century. She's a curator. She's contributed to museum exhibitions in the United States and abroad, including the Art Institute of Chicago, the Milwaukee Art Museum, and Tate Britain. Most recently, she served as one of the 3 co-curators for the exhibition and award-winning publication Life magazine and The Power of Photography, which debuted at the Princeton University Art Museum back in 2020. Alisa Shapiro, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Dominique.
Yeah, well, we started off our day with somewhere in the middle of our day, we started talking about this idea of, feeling exclusion and migration. And Dr. Joy DeGruy was here talking about forced displacement and how all of these things, impact us as human beings, as psychologically, physically, as organisms. And processing that or healing from that or even understanding that is part of the function of art. I'm assuming that's what you think. That's what I think. Talk to me about that.
Oh, I absolutely agree. It's one of the reasons why I've committed my life to the sort of work that I do as an art historian. I firmly believe that in order to move toward a better and more equitable future, we need to understand the past, and we need to be inspired by the past, even the more challenging moments from the past. And I think that art, as a creative medium, one that can speak to people's hearts and souls, in addition to history books and oral history testimonies and other sorts of forms of communication, I feel like the arts is always one that can get to people in different ways. And as a museum curator, I think it's our role to help inspire and to help teach so that we can all do what we can to make the world a little bit better every day.
That's funny because my dad, Amiri Baraka, the late Amiri Baraka, a.k.a. Leroy Jones, is known as the founder of the Black Arts Movement. And growing up, he taught me that all art is political. It's all saying something, so that it's better to be conscious of what you're saying than just be random or be unintentionally saying something that you don't want to put forth. But I think when we look at like photography, and we think of it as somehow more objective than other art.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's as if it gives you sort of an unmediated experience because it's using the technology of the camera. But as photo historians have been arguing since photography came into being in the 1830s, that it's clearly there are so many choices that are made by photographers in terms of the moment that they capture. And then when thinking about photojournalism and much of the curatorial work that I've done and related to my current exhibition right now at the Skirball Cultural Center, this Light of Ours, activist photographers of the civil rights movement, when I show people these exhibitions and I think about photojournalism, I remind them of how many choices are being made. So the moment when a photographer decides to click the shutter to capture an image, and then the individual who's looking through all of these hundreds of frames of film and decides which one should get printed in a dark room. And then the photo editors or the individuals at different organizations saying, okay, this is the image, this is the one that we want to publish or circulate to the masses. And then understanding which ones also continue to resonate and have this continual cultural meaning and form of iconicity. So this idea that there are so many choices built within, I think is crucially important when we think about photographs, not as just a direct reflection of the world around, but a series of choices to help tell stories.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's why certain people, celebrities or whatever, they have photo approval. That's why, and we forget, a picture looks totally different depending on what's cropped out and what stays in, what stays in
Absolutely.
the image and what gets omitted or edited. And I honestly, that we think of photography as some sort of, science rather than an art, but really it is an art.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know it, I can just talk about it anecdotally. When I started studying the history of photography back when I was in undergrad in college, I took a studio photography class to better understand the sort of intricacies of the medium. And I learned very quickly that I am not a professional photographer. While I can also point and snap on my iPhone or even using a fancy DSLR camera, it really takes an eye. And in the instance of the exhibition that I most recently curated, thinking about what photographers, the situations that they put themselves in to photograph some of the most turbulent and challenging times in history is way beyond what I could do from an aesthetic level, and takes a form of bravery and conscience that is really extraordinary, and I think often gets kind of lost when thinking about the various photographic chronicles of moments in time.
Yeah, and it's amazing how some of those moments in time have been actually changed by a picture. We'll talk about that and these more than 150 or at least 150 folks, artists that are whose work is part of this exhibition that's going on at the Skirball Center. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
At City National, we listen to you.
I want to expand my business and my legacy.
I want to set up the next generation for success.
I want to see my vision come to life.
I want to feel right at home.
Your goals, passions, vision, future. We want to hear it and work alongside you to achieve it. Visit cnb.com to learn more. City National Bank. Here for our clients and communities.
Boom, 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 boom.
Nissan has a car for every driver who wants more. More action. More fun. More guts. More head turns. More adventure. More electric. At Nissan, more is all we do. Shop Black Friday every day and get the best new deals all month long only at Lowe's. Right now, save up to $800 on select major appliances, plus save an extra $100 on select laundry pairs. And there's more. Bring home pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at $49 because Lowe's knows deals. Valid through 10/31. Appliance savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
Thinking about hosting a podcast and don't know where to start? Morris Media Studios has you covered. We're a professional podcast and voiceover studio located in Leimert Park. We specialize in recording and live streaming audio and video podcasts. Let us help you set up, record, and distribute your podcast. Hosting a podcast is a great way to bring awareness to your business, product, or good cause. For more info, visit morrismediastudios.com or give us a call at 323-815-4204.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Do appreciate you, and you're always welcome into the conversation. 800-920-1580. We're talking with Elisa Shapiro, an educator and curator. And she's got a show right now at Skirball Cultural Center. For those who haven't been, the Skirball Cultural Center offers all kinds of programming, from art to actual music, all kinds of things going on there. They have a thing called Noah's Ark that's always there. It's kind of fun to see, a family thing to see. So if you haven't been, it's a beautiful space. And this particular piece, This Light of Ours, is featuring photographers who captured the civil rights movement, and there are many of them, right?
Yes, exactly. So while there were tons of civil rights photographers during the 1960s, most of them were associated with picture magazines and newspapers. Think of everything from the New York Times to Life magazine or Look magazine. But this exhibition actually focuses on photographers who are a little bit different. And because they're a little bit different, they present a different side of the civil rights movement that many people, myself included, who've been doing this sort of research for a very long time, haven't always seen. And so the exhibition, This Light of Ours, Activist Photographers of the Civil Rights Movement, looks at 9 photographers who actually were members of the movement itself. They lived inside the movement, working every day with activists. So they themselves were really committed in every way possible to the cause of the Southern Freedom Movement or the Civil Rights Movement. And of this group of 9 photographers, the majority of them were actually members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, most famously run by John Lewis.
Right, SNCC. Actually, the exhibition opens November 9th, so it's coming up soon, but it'll be around through February. But when you said, it's an interesting distinction, because, you know, you have the press, whose job is to supposedly be objective, which I'm not. I don't believe there's such a thing as objectivity. I think there's fairness, but we can only see the world through our own eyes. But you're making this distinction of going to people who are part of the movement, and clearly they're going to see it differently. What is that difference as you experienced it?
Absolutely. And actually, the show's already open, so I hope people come.
Oh, okay. It says Saturday. November 9th on the on the website, but okay, it's open now.
Oh, well,
I can't wait to go see
everyone comes before that. It has a nice long run, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, but it's open now, which is great. Mm-hmm.
Yes. This insider-outsider sort of perspective is one that helps us think about the choices that photographers made and the experiences that they had. So for a lot of photojournalists who were attached to these larger publications, Many of them lived in the North and would just go down to the South to photograph a march in Mississippi or Alabama, or an event where they were trying to SNCC or other civil rights organizations were trying to help Black Americans in the South register to vote, and then they would leave, which is very different than the 9 photographers we highlight who really made this part of their everyday life. And what I find so interesting is of these 9 photographers, some of them weren't actually professional photographers, and it wasn't until they became part of the civil rights movement that their careers as photographers began. And one example of that is a young man named Tamio Wakayama, who's a Japanese-Canadian photographer. He grew up and was actually born in an incarceration camp during World War II in Canada following the Japanese bombing of Pearl Harbor. And as a young adult living in Canada, he was reading reports about what was happening to Black Americans in the South, and he decided that he needed to be there to help in any way he could. So he came south and met with members of SNCC and said, "What can I do?" And they gave him a camera and realized the skill he had with the camera. Some of my favorite photographs, we have over 150 photographs in the exhibition, and some of my favorite photographs are the ones taken by Tamio Wakayama. And from that experience, he became a professional photographer and photographed for the rest of his career. And the photographs that he took were not the ones, and all of the 9 photographers didn't necessarily just focus on the leaders of the movement. Of course, they photographed Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer and John Lewis and Stokely Carmichael and other leaders of the movement. But they also photographed the people that they were interfacing with and collaborating with every single day. And those were the organizers on the ground. Those were members of the Black communities in the South who were doing this sort of grassroots work every single day, as well as the countless volunteers, many of whom were minorities, who came down to the South at times like the 1964 Mississippi Freedom Summer and said, what can we do? How can we help our fellow Black Americans and citizens in the South? And so the chronicle that these activist photographers created, understanding that they were part of history in the process, was to photograph the people that they really got to know on an intimate and everyday level, which is very different than these professional photojournalists popping in for an hour or a day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting, too, that, you make the distinction that these folks either worked with the movement as, or were dedicated to it in various ways. But a lot of these folks are not Black. I mean, you only have a couple of Black photographers in this exhibition.
Yes. So of the 9 photographers, we have 2 Black photographers, both from the North. We have Bob Fletcher and Herbert Randall, and Herbert Randall was a Black and Native American photographer. And actually in the diversity and in the makeup and the backgrounds and perspectives of the 9 photographers actually serves as sort of a microcosm for the movement itself. And thinking about, particularly within SNCC, the large and inclusive coalition that was central to the movement and to their activities. So the 9 photographers are Bob Edelman, who is a Jewish man, a Jewish photographer, George Elfie Bailiff, Bob Fitch. Bob Fitch was a white minister born actually in Los Angeles. Bob Fletcher, Matt Herron, a white man also who spent a lot of time in California, who was actually the original curator of the exhibition. David Prince, who is a young Black student from the North who went down. Herbert Randall, who I mentioned. Maria Varela, a Mexican-American photographer. And then Tamio Wakayama, who's a Japanese-Canadian photographer. So in their own experiences and lives that they brought to photographing the movement, and particularly within SNCC, you see that they exemplify the inclusive coalition that was one of the most inspiring parts of the civil rights movement, and is the thing that I keep taking as one of my central takeaways from this exhibition, is that this is the model of allyship that is honest and authentic and powerful, and it's the one that we need to learn from and include in our own lives today.
When you say learn from, give me an example of a takeaway around allyship that you would that you bring forth from this, work.
Sure. I think that allyship is a continual process. It's not a one-day showing up type of thing. It's not a one-day showing up and marching alongside the people who are fighting for their lives and rights and freedoms. It's a continual process of really engaging and getting to know individuals across the spectrum of society and life, and really living with them in certain ways, getting to know their families, understanding their stories, and making a coalition that is built on extraordinary mutual understanding and trust. And for so many of the volunteers and many white volunteers, and so the Skirball Cultural Center is a Jewish cultural center. I'm Jewish myself. And for me personally, in looking at Bob Edelman as a Jewish photographer and all of the many Jewish individuals who are photographed in these 150 plus images in our exhibition, to see the young and old Jewish individuals from across the country going south and saying to the Black leaders of these organizations, what can I do? How can I be of service to you? Whether it's being part of a march or going down and spending the summer in Mississippi and helping Black Americans register to vote when so many different obstacles were put in their way from doing so. So that's the thing that inspires me. And there's one photograph in particular that will stay with me forever, and it's a photograph by Herbert Randall, who's the Black and Native American photographer. And we wanted to make sure that we heard the voices of these photographers throughout the exhibition. So we have these audio stops where we have headphones, and it's also accessible through our brand new Bloomberg Connect app, that we can hear the photographers when 8 of the 9 photographers were recorded in 2011 talking about some of these photographs. And we hear Herbert Randall talking about his experience of photographing an older Jewish rabbi from Cleveland named Arthur Leleveld, who was in Mississippi for Mississippi Freedom Summer in 1964, who, while helping Black Americans register to vote, was brutally attacked by white supremacist vigilantes and beaten, and like very violently with a tire iron. And Herbert Randall, the photographer, was in a car, and he saw, and as he talked about it, he saw the rabbi bleeding profusely from his head. So he ran out to try to help this rabbi staunch the bleeding. And Rabbi Leleveld looked up at him and said, "Photographer, take the picture," understanding how important it was to document what was happening to civil rights workers, and particularly civil rights workers who were not Black, to have those photographs circulate and say and maybe impact other communities. Because unfortunately during that time, and we see that horribly even today, that oftentimes when Black Americans are brutalized, the media doesn't cover it. But you have someone in a position of power and authority in this well-known older white-presenting rabbi who's been attacked, and being able to show that, you know, this is a problem that affects every single one of us is a moment of connection and collaboration. The way that Herbert Randall tells that story, and we have the photograph in the exhibition, is something that has really spoken to me and will leave a lasting impression.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like, documentation also of the long-standing alliances that have happened, particularly in this country, around racism and white supremacy between Black Americans and Jewish American communities, and documenting that piece of the civil rights movement. When we come forward, I want to talk about some of these iconic images that change the narrative. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on this Friday. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Sam Bankman-Fried is expected to make what could be a risky move in his fraud trial this morning when he takes the witness stand in New York federal court. The founder and former CEO of cryptocurrency exchange FTX is accused of fraud after the exchange and its associated trading firm collapsed late last year. Governor Brian Kemp is ordering lawmakers back to the state capitol to redraw Georgia's political district. His announcement yesterday came shortly after a federal judge ruled that the state's maps were unconstitutional. Lawmakers will be tasked with adding a majority black congressional district in West Atlanta, as well as make changes to the State House and State Senate maps. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
The Monterey Bay Aquarium is more than a place to learn about ocean animals. They're also working to inspire conservation of the ocean by stopping plastic pollution, supporting sustainable seafood, and minimizing our carbon footprint. Join them in their efforts to protect the ocean.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers get their first win of the season last night. They beat Phoenix by 5 at Crypto.com. Anthony Davis scored 13 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter. LeBron James played 35 minutes, including the entire fourth quarter. He had 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists. Phoenix had a 12-point lead entering the fourth quarter. The Clippers are back in action tonight at Utah, 6:30 tip-off on KTLA TV Channel 5. From the Now It Can Be Told department, 2 former NFL players tried out for the lead role in the 1971 groundbreaking film Shaft, running back Jim Brown and defensive back Fred Williamson. The role eventually went to an unknown model named Richard Roundtree, who turned Shaft into an iconic film character. Roundtree passed away on Tuesday. He was 81. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chucha's opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chucha's Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Attention small landlords who own 12 or fewer residential rental units. The City of LA Emergency Renters Assistance Program is back to help small landlords and is now accepting applications. Apply for up to 6 months of rental arrears for low-income residential tenants behind on rent. Applications will be accepted until October 31st, 2023 at 6 p.m. Go online 24/7 at housing.lacity.org or call 888-379-3150 to see if you qualify and apply today. City of LA Small Landlords. This program is for you.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling, busting, trucking.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit catblack.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
And the exhibition is called This Light of Ours, Activist Photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. And you can get all the information at skirball.org. It's SKIRBALL, skirball.org. Find out about the exhibition going on now through February. The curator, she's an educator as well, Elisa Shapiro, is with us. She urges you to go now. Don't wait till Black History Month. Go see it right now. And, you know, you mentioned one photograph that really stuck with you. I'm looking at the bio of one of the artists that's featured here, Matt Herron, who is one of the photojournalists who did both. He was working with SNCC, but he was also working with Time magazine and Life magazine and such. And one of his photos, which is a police officer trying to grab an American flag out of the hand of a black child, made a lot of waves, got awarded one of the top photography prizes, right? But those kinds of moments captured by photographers have really changed the course of many a news story and many a public attitude, haven't they?
Absolutely. And Matt Herron's a really interesting example, as you said, who did both, working for these larger publications. But for him, the work that really spoke to his soul and the work that ended up becoming a book called The Eyes of Mississippi that he put together were his civil rights photographs. And he actually was the curator of the exhibition. So a little background on the exhibition itself. It was actually originally organized by an organization called the Center for Documentary Expression and Art in Utah. And Matt Herron was brought in as one of the photographers, to be the curator. And so he was the one who actually chose the other 8 photographers to be featured in the exhibition. And he selected every single one of the 157 black and white photographs in the project and even ordered them. So when we got the show, and so after it was organized at the Center for Documentary Expression and Art, it went to the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage in Cleveland, Ohio, and they added to the exhibition. So it's these 2 entities that have been circulating the show and that we brought to the Skirball, and then, as we say, we Skirballized it. We added a bunch of new objects and different content and different sorts of experiences. So Matt Herron is just a really interesting example because he really was kind of a maverick in the way that he took photographs and presented photographs. And as we say, that one photograph is one that went on to win all of these awards for Matt Herron and kind of pushed him to continue doing this work for his whole life. And something that he really wanted to combat when curating this exhibition was he didn't just want to focus on these photographs that have become iconic and these photographs of violence against the black communities in the South and black protesters, even though that was critically important in raising awareness for what was happening. But he also really wanted to ensure that this exhibition showed a different side of the movement and showed the dignity and resourcefulness and the pride of black communities in the South. And actually the first section of the exhibition is called Black Life, What We Saw, and tries to combat this idea that all that existed for black communities in the South was pain, and really emphasizing the beauty. One of my favorite photographs in the show is of this older black woman who's laughing, and you can almost hear her laughter through the photograph, and making sure that it's not just what we remember of the civil rights movement is not just extraordinary violence or these moments of great success like the 1965 passage of the Voting Rights Act, but also of the individuals who made up the movement, who committed every day of their lives to the movement, and really the beauty of their lives, and photographs of them that show just how strong and resilient and passionate they were to make this really their life's work.
Mm. Yeah, it's an important point that we still struggle with today, just not only showing, if it bleeds, it leads, or yes, now I'm Simone Biles and I'm the most decorated of all time. Well, what about everyday life? What about the regular everyday humanity that we fight for, and that that's the reason why we keep going. Let's go to Morris calling us from Inglewood. Hi, Morris. You're on with Elisa Shapiro on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, good morning, ladies. I do believe that a picture can say 1,000 words. And there's one photograph of a young lady at Kent State who was on her knees after one of her friends, a student, had been shot and killed by the armed forces there. They were just simply protesting the Vietnam War. And to see this young lady on her knees crying, exercising their First Amendment right, I'm an old man, and I still remember that.
Mm. Yeah, it's kind of what we were talking about prior, those impactful images. Do you remember, or have you seen the photo that Morris is talking about?
Oh, yes, I know it well. It has become incredibly iconic. And it's one that, I've actually studied in art history classes, and it kind of resonates with the structure of a pietà, of the biblical positioning of Mary cradling her son Christ after he's been crucified. And there are many reasons why photographs become iconic, and there are many great historians who work on this subject of iconicity in photography, and Robert Harriman and John Luke Cates do it better than everyone, and they've written about this photograph and its power and impact, and not only in that sort of perfect moment of what the famous French photographer Henri Cartier-Bresson called the decisive moment, that perfect shot that a photographer takes, but this one being so evocative of this woman crying in pain while seriously just peacefully protesting the Vietnam War. And so it's that moment that's captured, and then how the image circulates and gets repeated time and time again in these different spaces. And I've been thinking about iconicity a lot, really since 2020 with the murder of George Floyd and the photographs of the protests that happened after his murder, and thinking about which images have become the ones that are the kind of lasting chronicle. And there's one Associated Press photograph that really spoke to me of a young Black man wearing a mask at the time of COVID and holding an American flag upside down as he's walking past buildings that are on fire in the background, and you even have the telephone poles on fire, like the process of communication is literally burning. And it's a photograph, extraordinary, powerful photograph that I saw in 1 week, used by Fox News, used by CNN, used by the New York Times, and used in all of these different contexts that really just take this photograph and employed it for whatever kind of ideological aims, or very specific to push one narrative or another. And so the kind of mutability of photography, the way that one image can be used to advocate for very different things, to me is fascinating as a sort of sociological and political study of how these images are used and by whom.
Well, yeah, and then you can layer on top of that the fact that we have all these deep fakes now. Every time I see something startling or remarkable right now, if it's a photo, the first thing I try to do is figure out if it's a real picture or an actual situation or something someone generated.
Oh, same. These AI photographs are incredibly challenging, especially for those who work in the field that I do, when authenticity is so important to what we do, and that is so small relative to people in your line of work who are presenting the news and trying to make sure that your listeners or watchers or readers are seeing things that are real. And the prevalence of these sorts of fakes is something that I think we're going to have to grapple with for a very long time. And it's not to say that, again, that photographs are all authentic. There's been manipulation in photography since the beginning of the media. But now it's so easy to make these fakes. And when photographs are seen as definitive proof, the idea that something can be faked it is really scary when it comes to our sort of democratic values and processes.
Yeah, faked and put in different content. I mean, a great example. I guess last week and the week before, this photo of Biden on the beach has been going viral, and everyone's saying, the world is on fire and he's on the beach. Well, that photo was taken in August, and too late. The damage is done, right? So it's the image and whether it's a real image, but as you state about that Black Lives Matter photo, it's also the context, right?
Yep. Yeah, very much so. And I think that as another plug for the importance of studying art and visiting museums, I think really looking closely at art objects and the history of art and seeing works in person rather than just on your screen helps build this visual literacy and can help people realize when things might not be authentic and to figure out what questions to ask to say, okay, do we think that this was taken out of context or was completely faked? And that sort of visual literacy is something that we all need to be brushing up on all the time. I taught at Northwestern University. I taught undergraduates in art history. And my pitch to them always when they came from different disciplines was, I am teaching you here, we are teaching you here how to be really close lookers. And it's something that you will need and will benefit you for your life. And I think that sort of visual literacy is more important today than it's ever been.
Yes, indeed. Alicia Shapiro is our guest. She's got a show right now at the Skirball Cultural Center, and you're invited. And we'll find out, how you can go and when to go and what to do when you get there. That's next, that and more on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. Today I spoke with Tatiana, a community manager for JP Morgan Chase.
Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Tatiana Roberts. I am a community manager for JP Morgan Chase. I have to honestly say that this has been the most fulfilling position that I've ever had, where I get to give back to the community because I saw my mom's struggles. That's really what fuels what I do to make sure that the community has all the access to the resources that my mother didn't have.
So for the mother who's in business, what are 3 quick tips you can give to ensure that they're on the right path to accessing financial support from a bank like Chase?
Say number 1, just make sure that you're checking your credit on a consistent basis and taking action to either fix your credit, maintain your credit, or rebuild your credit. The second thing would be budget. I know that B word is kind of like ugly for, right? A lot of people don't like that B word, but it has to be done. We need to tell our money where to go. The last thing is to build a network of supporters that are going to lift you up.
The community building here in Crenshaw is that network. So visit the Chase Community Center on Crenshaw and Vernon. Meet a banker today. Tell them about your business. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
We're celebrating 1 year of the K. From checking out the vibrant art and diverse dining in Leimert Park to cheering on your favorite team in Inglewood, you can choose your own adventure when you ride the Metro K-Line. Leave the car at home and go Metro. Visit metro.net/K-Line.
Hey, son. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, the loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at soundidouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
And we are talking with Elisa Shapiro, an educator and a curator. This light of ours, photojournalism of the civil rights movement, going on right now at the Skirball Cultural Center. If you haven't been there yet, if they haven't, I've been there many a time. What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that it is a warm and welcoming space for everyone. We have a variety of exhibitions that are on view. We have our permanent exhibition that looks at the history of Jewish life and culture. And we have 3 temporary shows up right now. So in addition to this light of ours, activist photographers of the civil rights movement, we have a brilliant show up called The American Library by Yinka Shonibare. Yinka Shonibare is a British-Nigerian artist who created this library of books that are wrapped in Dutch wax fabric that have on the spine of the book the names of first and second generation immigrants to this country, as well as the names of many Black Americans who came north during the Great Migration. And it's an exhibition that is aesthetically beautiful and also asks questions about American identity and pluralism and how this country came to be, and there are opportunities for our visitors to write in their own immigrant stories and stories of migration within this country. And so that's a show that I couldn't highly recommend anymore. And then our third show that's up right now is another show that I curated called Reclaimed, a family painting that looks at the history of Nazi looted art through the experiences of one Jewish family based here in Los Angeles that spent over 80 years trying to get back one beloved painting from their family's collection. And so that's from the museum side. That's what we do. And then we have countless incredible programs, music programs, lectures, classes. We have spaces to eat. We have a great restaurant. And then we have Noah's Ark, which is our children's exhibition that uses, that has all of these animals created from recycled materials. It's super interactive. It's amazing for kids. When I first took the job as a curator at the Skirball, all of my friends were very excited, those who had kids, because they thought I could get them in and get them sneaky access to Noah's Ark, which is really it's one of my favorite places in the museum. I try to pop down as much as I can. So there's something for everyone, from different generations, from all backgrounds and lived experiences. And we're just really a warm and welcoming and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. So
it is beautiful and peaceful. Yeah, it's a beautiful, peaceful place right off the 405. Once you get through that traffic, you will be glad you went there. Talk to me about what you are hoping, to set off, stimulate, or set in motion with this particular exhibition about the activist photographers of the civil rights movement.
Yeah, I love that question, because we don't just do the work as curators to think about moments in history, but it's really to ask the questions of what we can learn from them. And for me, and what we really try to emphasize in this exhibition is the fact that there's still so much more work to be done, and more work to be done in the tradition of the civil rights movement, and in particular SNCC. And one of the central activities that SNCC was involved with throughout the 1960s was voting rights activism. And as we come upon a major election in 2024, another presidential election, it's more important than ever for us all to continue the work of making voting accessible to all, as is the constitutional right for all Americans. And so the final section of the exhibition, after we go through all of the historical photographs and various other archival objects that we added to the exhibition. The final section is called Unfinished Business, and it really looks at the 2013 Shelby County v. Holder Supreme Court decision that eliminated so many critical protections against discrimination and voting rights that were promised by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the rollback of all of those sorts of protections that have made particularly immigrant populations and populations of color and others in the country that are the most vulnerable has stripped them of the right to vote or made voting so much harder. And so we need to follow the lead of SNCC and the civil rights movement more generally and ensure that their sacrifices were not in vain as we rebuild those protections.
Yeah,
everyone deserves.
It's really telling, I think, that they stuck cameras in people's hands and recruited photographers. One of the conversations I'm hearing now is that so many of those photos and images of the civil rights era and even the modern movement are owned by various agencies whose job is to make money off photos. And then at a certain point, if you don't have access to those images, what is that? How does that impact our ability to tell our stories?
It's a great point and so accurate. And it's the reason why, the museums do what we do, right? Because if it's harder to access those images and publish those images because of all image rights permissions and the like, something I know, unfortunately, all too well. We have at museums, it's part of our role and responsibility to ensure that people can see this history as it was visualized during the time. And we added a number of things at the Skirball to the exhibition. And I think what I'm most proud of is a final installation called Activism Today, where we highlight a bunch of local and national organizations that are at the forefront of voting rights activism today. And we got in touch with all of them, and we looked at the kinds of graphics that they use, the photographs, the posters, as part of their activities. And we see such a resonance with the kind of aesthetics that SNCC and the civil rights movement itself made popular. And to see how those organizations are ensuring that they're using photographs in really creative ways to help tell these stories and to connect us to the fight for freedom during the civil rights movement. So you see at the end of our exhibition some of these graphics from organizations like the League of Women Voters, which has an amazing photograph of a white and black woman marching together from the 1960s, or the Andrew Goodman Foundation. Andrew Goodman was a young Jewish New Yorker who was murdered in Mississippi alongside Black Mississippian James Chaney and another Jewish New Yorker, Mickey Schwerner. And in his foundation, started in his memory by his parents, they used some of the photographs of Andrew Goodman from the 1960s when he was in Mississippi. So you see that these organizations are working in such a smart way. And then one of my favorite posters in that final section of the exhibition is made by an artist named Eric Oliver, who's working for the NAACP, who created the series of thinking about martyrs from the civil rights movement, and has a graphic of Medgar Evers, and has a graphic of Chaney, Goodman, and Schwerner, and has a graphic of the 4 little girls who were killed in the Birmingham church bombing. And so that reuse of those sorts of images by activists and activist organizations, to me, is really inspiring. And then we call to our visitors and we say to them, look at all these organizations that are right in your backyard and accessible throughout the country. It's now your time, and get involved. And we provide those resources to get involved.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Shapiro, for being with me today. And I encourage everyone to go. I'm encouraging myself to go. And you can find out more at skirball.org. Appreciate you.
And I'll just say that on November 9th, our tours start of the exhibition. So if you want to have someone walk you through the show, you can go to that starting on November 9th.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Tavis Smiley's up next, the best of Tavis Smiley, because it is Friday. I'll see you on social media. History is now, and we are making it together. Until Monday, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on this Friday. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Sam Bankman-Fried is expected to make what could be a risky move in his fraud trial this morning when he takes the witness stand in New York federal court. The founder and